If you're new in crypto, down days like this can be hard because you haven't learned how normal this is. Even in the middle of an up market, you still have times like this. And I do feel that we are in the middle of an up market and we're having a pause and a consolidation before a very big run. Now, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is still small enough that big whales can make big moves that scare people, and they usually do that in coordination with some articles coming out, and we see that play over and over and over again. Now, having been in crypto for 4 years, this is just normal to me, but I understand if you're new, this can be scary. That's okay. You're always new before you're not. And you're always bad at this before you're good. So stick around because this is the best place for us to be. And today I have a special guest coming to us from Definity. And this is Paul. And you've met Paul before because every Wednesday he comes on this channel and he gives us expert technical analysis on what we're seeing on the charts. And if you want to participate in that, put some suggestions of what you want to see for next week's analysis with Paul, and we will review those. But please limit it to 2 per person. All right, let me welcome over Paul. Paul, are you there?
I am indeed. It's great to be here. I've seen some fantastic suggestions from the viewers, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, let's get the ball rolling.
Let's-
Do you mind if we start off with the overall, your thoughts on the market overall, and then Bitcoin and Ethereum?
yeah, let's start because as we did last week as well, I think we started off by saying, actually, I'm gonna look at Bitcoin, obviously, but I'm going to start off with the equity markets because I just want to say very quickly, because I've been talking about this market turning over for a while, and as you can see, this is the S&P 500, and it was consolidating at near a top, and now it's turning over. So this is acting exactly as we expected. It's topping out, and now it's starting to go down. So this could actually be the beginning of a big bear trend, and so I would be careful. One of the other things that we were looking at, which related to it, is the US 10-year bond market. Now, if you don't look at yields, don't worry about that. But the important thing is, are yields going up or going down? If yields start to go up, it means that people who invest in bonds are going to get a greater return for their money. And that can pull money out of other markets. That money could be pulled out of equities. It could be pulled out of cryptocurrencies. So this is why we keep an eye on these yields to see whether they start moving too aggressively. At the moment, they're moving up quite gently, but this is still a rising yield market, which could put more pressure on the cryptocurrencies. So we were looking for a breakout, and we've had a breakout here. If you look at how many times the market tried to get above this 1.378 level, and then finally it broke through it. So it's had a bit of a run. How far will it go? Well, it could get to 180 and maybe beyond. If it gets to those levels, then I would expect some form of correction in the other markets. So I'd expect equities to go down and a little bit of pressure on the cryptocurrencies before they eventually turn around. So I don't think this is going to end the trend, but it may consolidate it or continue with this consolidation for a while longer. So coming on to the big one, Bitcoin, this is playing out pretty much as expected in terms of it either being in a consolidation or corrective phase, not a bullish phase as yet. We're still waiting for the evidence that this has turned around, and it hasn't done what I'd like it to do, which is to break through this 53,000 to 54,000 level to take us up to 100. It's still in this consolidation, chewing around this 42,000 level, and I think the pressure is still on the downside. It's still very balanced, but balanced to the downside before the market will go back up again. So I'm not getting drawn into a bullish view as yet on Bitcoin, simply because it is in a consolidation and it needs to work a bit harder before I think it's broken out. Now, there are some who use something called Elliott wave, and when you use something called Elliott wave, when the market corrects, it corrects in 3 waves. So it goes down one, up, down 2, and 3. So this could be what's called a 3-wave correction before the market goes back up again. Now, I personally just like to look at how the price is consolidating and look at trigger levels in support and resistance. And at the moment, this is still under pressure. So I'm not going to get drawn into the bullish view as yet, but I can see what they're saying. And I think this downward trend line here is a very good short-term trigger to tell us that there might be some strength coming in. So if you didn't want to miss a short-term bullish trigger, not necessarily long-term, but short-term, this downward trend line would do the trick. So that comes in around, let me just move that up there so you can see it a bit clearer. So this comes in around the 43,600 level. So 43,600 would be a weekly kind of little breakout point to see if the market can get a little bit more bullish than it is now. But we have to be very careful about the overall broader scenario, with equities looking like they're going to turn down and with bond yields going up. So that's causing a little bit of concern in the equity markets. But further out, I think you're absolutely right. You know, we got to ride out these corrections. Nothing ever goes up in a straight line, and part of these corrections are to shake people out.
Absolutely, and it works every time.
Yes, indeed. So, and it's also a market where we are seeing a fragmentation of the coins. So, in other words, you know, it really is, we would call it a stock pickers market, and we would call it a coin pickers market. So it really depends a lot on what coin you've picked and the sort of research that you've done, which is why you're in the right place for that, because, you know, your man here has done a lot of research and knows the background, not necessarily on every coin, but I think it really helps to know when something is a buy because it's pulling back and something is a buy, or you know, the opposite. You know, you should just be getting out because it's looking a bit dangerous. But we've got a very interesting list, because some of them are looking great and some of them are looking not so great. So I guess we should start looking at those.
Yeah, fantastic. Why don't we go through now? These are suggestions from our viewers from last week, and every one of them, but I did add Coti in there myself, and as well as added Luna in there at the end. But every one of these came from you guys. So if you do have suggestions you want us to review next week, up to 2. And they do need to be on at least CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko or something so that we can chart them, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That really does help a lot. And I think you said last week as well, if you can help with some of the backstory on some of the coins that, you know, you may not have heard of, it would also help as well. So perhaps we're going to get some backstories on some of these coins that we're looking at today. So if you can, like, I look at the tickers, so I try to find the right ones. If I haven't got the right ones, you know, I'm sure you'll tell me. But this is right. What is it? Spores. So this is Spores, the first one. Does that look correct to you in terms of the price? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Now, this has come through a important support level, so I can see why this has gone negative. If we take this point in 21st of September, it was consolidating. We saw a little bit of a rebound, but that was smacked back, and we've got these lower peaks coming down here, which is a breakout that we need to see before we can turn bullish. So 1, 2, 3 downward peaks. These support levels here have been breached, so you can probably guess that it's not looking that great at the moment. I would be waiting, certainly, especially because of the rate that this market has gone down recently through that support. It would at least have to get back over that support level before I would get excited about buying the market again. So it's through quite a critical support level here, but there is, on the upside, if this is going to be a good long-term coin, there is some support coming in very soon. So now, if it were me, I would either be sidelined. If I was neutral on it, if I didn't have anything in it, I don't think I'd add to it or buy any right now. But if there was some good fundamentals behind it, then we are close to longer-term support, where I would consider a very small position just to put your toe in the water, as they say. But at the moment, I think it's better off waiting, or at least until it can break over this 0.030 level and recover some support, because that's a really important level for me.
Yeah, makes sense. And this is one of those that's going through its post IDO malaise where so after they launch and they start to get some recognition, they then, sometimes pop on their price. But then like no new news is coming out. They're building their platform, they're making some partnerships, specifically in this one, some really good partnerships. But it's kind of out of sight, out of mind usually for a few months till they have something showable, and they're building a NFT marketplace, and so that's not live yet. So there's nothing really going on here. And with crypto, everyone has massive ADD because the market changes so much, and so this is out of focus. Probably will be out of focus for a couple months, which I term this as it's getting boring, and that's when I like to buy, when it gets boring. What I'm seeing here is it's broken through some resistance there, and it might come down to a really juicy price. And let us pray that that's the case. If so, I'm going to add to my position. Absolutely be interested at those prices because I do like the team behind this. I think they'll do exactly what they've set out to accomplish. They definitely have an amazing network to make that happen. So this is one of my favorite long terms, and I hope that price gets really juicy. I'm not buying at present levels. I'm looking for it to get cheaper and more boring, and then I will load up even more.
Wow, that's exciting. That sounds really exciting. Great. So the next one is Trustpad. Is that right? This may be slightly out of order because so if I've missed one, apologies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Covalent was the next one I had on our
Okay.
list.
Okay. Let's. Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Covalent. Yeah. So this is actually similar in terms of I think it's going to get cheaper. I would be tempted to look at some retracement levels here. Let's have a look. Let's Fibonacci. I've got my tools here, but I also every time I put something up, it gets sometimes it's behind the window of the video, so I can't see it. So yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm seeing a massive bottom and a top that is correcting, and then what I like to do when I see something like that is put a Fibonacci retracement level. So don't worry if you've never heard of them. They're consistent retracement points that sometimes makes the market react. And they are 38.2, 50%, and 61.8%, and then 78.6 or 0.786. So I'm looking at where the market might react next. Because it's still in a correction, it's still not ready to turn around. I think it will still get cheaper. But I like this 0.786 level as a short-term stopping point, which comes in at 0.69. So 0.69 would be a level where I would attempt to buy some, just because that's a Fibonacci support level. It's actually a support level on the way up. You see the way it stopped there, and then it broke out. So usually the market comes back to these levels and reacts again. So longer term, it's not bullish yet. It's still got to do a bit more work, and we would put in a trend line in order to indicate that it's going into a much bigger and better overall trend. So it would need to break this downward trend line for me to get more excited about the long term. But in the short term, yeah, it's going down. We're going to have to look at this level of support, and it may, as you say, get even cheaper before it turns around. So this is the big reversal level, this downward trend line that's got to break. But for the moment, I think it's still sideways to down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And most things are down historically in September with cryptocurrencies, so no big surprise here. Also, we've had some really juicy gains already this year. So usually after that, there's some sideways trading. And on this one, what's interesting is there's a little bit more history on CoinGecko, is where it came out and it launched at just months back. It ended up coming right back up to that price around 165, and then it's then traded down since then. In fact, we did have some big breakouts like a wick that went all the way above $2. But essentially, the stronger part of that came right back up to where it had been when it launched. And I'm not sure what event kicked off this big run, but that is a parabolic move, and this is how all parabolic moves end at some point.
Yeah.
And so then you have a pullback and retracement as it pulls back that rubber band, and the farther and longer it retraces, then the more momentum it has when it breaks up from that, as long as the team is continuing to produce and do things that investors are expecting. So
Yeah, you've also got the psychological level there of 1, so you can see how as it approached it, there was a bit of buying going on just before it, and it had a nice bounce, 20% bounce. You can't argue with that, but then it's come back below that. That's a stop clearing out exercise. So if it can get back over 1, that would be a good sign.
yeah, great.
Okay.
All right.
So Trustpad, is that
Trustpad, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's quite a volatile one sometimes. This is a lovely reversal down here. Now, it would have been great to talk about it as it was making this inverse head and shoulders. You've got left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So this was the start of the trend. But the trend has got very choppy. It's gone into turbulence for some reason. So what you're seeing, which is really difficult for short-term investors, and perhaps even long-term actually, is the way the market makes a high and then makes quite a big swing low, and then it makes another high again, and then it swings back down again, and then it swings up again, makes a high, and then an even bigger low. I mean, this is like, if you're riding this it's like a crazy fucking bronco. So if you're still in it, then you've probably got nerves of steel. But where we are now, I'd hope that this would consolidate a bit more and calm down this volatility, because it's not helping anybody. So I'd like to know what's behind it. But the main positive thing is the move down has been reversed very quickly. So it's not down and stayed down. It's gone down and it's V'd straight back up again, which is a good sign. So I would say, given that it's done that, and if it can calm down a bit, then I think this has got some good upside prospects. So it may not break out today or this week, but I'd be looking for it to try and take out this prior high and get towards the 60 level and maybe a 0.6 level, and then maybe even a bit higher. But if this volatility continues, I think it will upset investors, certainly short-term traders. So, it needs to calm down, basically.
Yeah, now this one is a Launchpad project with a token. So in order to participate in the project that they launch, you have to hold the token. So what my guess is, there was some launch that was really, really popular going up to this, and it might have been the network land sale. That might have been it, because you had to hold some tokens in order to participate in that, or it might have been Snook or one of their other launches. And so what happens is people will stock up on tokens and buy them to get into that, and then sometimes after it then dumps. And that looks exactly what I'm seeing in this volatile pattern here.
Yeah.
Now, generally, scrolling back, like back when the market was booming, Launchpad projects and their tokens usually really boom. And so if we look back to earlier this year, March, April, May, when the market was booming, everyone was grabbing as many Launchpad tokens as they could to get bigger allocations in the projects that were launching, because most projects that were launching, if you're able to get the token at IDO, you got anywhere from 3 to 300x gains. And so Launchpad tokens did incredibly well. And then as the market slowed down and people weren't so interested in getting into Launchpads, you see the token dump, and now you're starting to see it build up some momentum. So if I'm right, and that we have a massive parabolic move coming, at that point you'll see all the Launchpad tokens, at least all the big Launchpad tokens, going crazy as well.
Great. Look forward to that. So would Vent be the next one?
Yep, and Vent is a Launchpad on Cardano, but it doesn't have a lot of history for us to look at.
No, not really. Perhaps you can tell. Do you know much about the background of this one?
I do. So primarily there's 3 Launchpads on Cardano. There was just another one added, AdaPad. I don't know the team behind that. Vent is a solid team. I think they'll be making their first announcement soon on their first launch that'll come through their site. They did work with Mel to build a Polygon to Cardano bridge, which I covered and did a video on, and you have a chance to meet Lucas from the Vent team there. Really sharp guy, younger, but bright. And so I think they've got a really good future. So, in my opinion, the token's still relatively cheap compared to what I think it'll do. I think as projects start launching on the Cardano ecosystem and they start getting some of those really good launches, and that's if they get the really good launches. Now, I think they have a talented enough team that will happen, but we'll see. Then this token will really moon. So I've stocked up on a lot of this token myself.
I think what's interesting about this one is, although there's not a lot of data, so it's quite hard to give a strong opinion at this point. First of all, at least it's going up, so the trend line is up. Secondly, what I'm seeing here is that the volume is tailing off as it's correcting. So this is not big selling as the market comes down. It's coming down. The volume's going down as the market's going down, and then the volume goes up as the market goes up. So that's a pretty good sign. It does need a bit more price data for us to get our teeth into it technically, but the trend is up, so that's the best thing you can say about it. So, but the background of it sounds very interesting as well. So, I would defer on that side.
Yeah, this was really cheap, and I stocked up on this. I'm massively in profit on this, and normally I would be taking gains. In this case, I have much higher expectations for what it'll do once they start announcing some big launches. Probably it will spike up. At that point, I may consider, but even though I'm in profit hugely right now, I'm still just sitting on it because I think being a launchpad on Cardano, and they do have smart contracts now, and I think the Cardano ecosystem will come back into focus, and when it does, I think this one will do well.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying more at the current price. I would buy more if it got under maybe 40 cents again. I'm not seeing in the charts that it will.
No, it doesn't look like it. I think the only thing we can, there's not, as I say, there's not a lot of data there, but we've hit this one level. So somebody's decided to bail out on some just because of this psychological level. It did get through it before, just today it's done that and come off. But in terms of the overall trend, that doesn't break it and it doesn't change it. It's just a little correction on a big round number. So yeah, that's still looking positive. So very interesting story there. So we've got no.
This is not the one.
It's not the one, is it?
Omni, people driven. There's like 4 Omnis.
Omnis, right? Let's have a look.
And it will say.
So it's not. So yeah. So is it this? No, that's the one I've just put in.
No.
Omni.
OMN is the token. Take the eye out and see the. Let's see. OMN.
Yeah, Omni token use.
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. People driven. Oh wow. Okay. So
there we go.
Yeah, we got a big spike in the data, which always causes.
Wow.
If
that data is correct, somebody really put in a terrible buy order.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's actually difficult to look at because of it. It's really, I've only got a tiny bit of data given that.
Let's see, was there another one that would also give us the data that might not include that huge spike?
Yeah, let's
look at it there. Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a look here. So,
there you go.
So it's OMN, and then
it's people.
People
driven. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, did I just click on the wrong one? I did.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Somehow it did something weird.
Yeah, that was strange, wasn't it? There we go.
There we go.
Great. All right. So we've got a bit of data, even though it's a line chart, which is, I prefer the either bar or candle chart.
You can get the candles, under the 1 year if you go up.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah.
There you go.
So this is, I'm going to get the max data because I think we need it. Okay, there's still not a whole lot of data here, which is a bit of a shame. So we're only going back to the 26th of July. I think something's weird with that spike and the data. So the market's made a high and we're coming off that high. It's correcting, but it's found a lot of interest around this 0.06, 0.07 level. A lot of interest. So there's a big floor of support. It's held, bounce, come back, support here. So if this can hold on and get, I would like to see it back over 0.85 or point 0.085 to 0.09. Then it would make what's called a double bottom, and then it would be a buy, and it would also break the downward trend line. So I think those are the two things that I'd be looking for on this limited data that we've got. So there's good support. I wouldn't want to see it go much below there, but I think I get a feeling that I'm going to be told that this is good technology, and that could be a good buying opportunity for the long term. But from a week-to-week chart pattern point of view, we have to respect the fact that it has been going downwards here in this downward trend, and it's got to break out of that before we can get a bit more positive on it, other than it just being inverted commas cheap. So we need to see the market becoming a bit more interested, and that's where I think it would. I mean, it's not that far away. It doesn't have to do that much work to look a bit more bullish, but it does have to do something.
Yeah, exactly. They're in the post IDO, like that slowdown period where the token just kind of suffers. Also, some of the ones that we've been covering, like Vent, Omni, Spores, particularly Spores and Omni, came out still during the slow period of the summer, and the summer was really slow. And then things really picked up for a lot of projects in August, a lot of the new ones, and then it's just kind of come back down. Now, my guess is there's some token unlocks for some of the pre-sale investors that's still happening. And so as those unlocks happen, then you have some sell pressure. And so it gives us an idea when we see that there's a lot of support, how well that this does setting up for when the bull run happens. Now, there's some of the projects that I really like for this next swing up. Like, I'm diversifying out of some of my large caps into some riskier projects like this. And so Spores is one of those that I'm diversifying into, as well as, or I have diversified into, in Omni and Vent, some of these low cap projects, so that if we see a big swing, we also see some really big gains.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Umbrella Network, I think we looked at that last week, or maybe a couple of weeks ago as well, and we were looking at this inverse head and shoulders pattern and looking for a breakout, which is happened. So the market has gone through its breakout point, and it's in an upward trend. So we're now reversing. This is good. We want to see it get to 1 now. There'll be some resistance along the way. So 0.85 is where it might stop for a little breather and consolidation. But this is looking good. Look, on a relatively flat day, it's trying to take out 2 or 3 month highs. So I'd like to see this accelerate, and it's accelerating. So you can't really say fairer than that. Now, if it does come back and give people who've missed the move an opportunity to buy it again, I would say this 30.32 level is where the floor of support is. So if it comes back, it shouldn't get much below 0.32, and if it does, then it's like its phase is over and it will consolidate. But I'm only just saying that just in case it does come back. I think this is looking strong enough for it to make a move towards 0.85 and possibly even 1.
Yeah, agreed. And this is one that I know a lot of our audience got into it after we kind of shared with them some of the details on it. Do note that this isn't financial advice. Just an investor myself. Paul is joining us from Definity, and so we're not telling people what to do. We're just sharing with them some analysis. Specifically, these are projects that the audience asked for, but many of these are ones that I'm a big fan of as well and that I cover. And I'm just an investor myself, and I tell people what I'm doing and what I'm interested in and why. At the end, you make your own decision. Yeah. But I do know some of our audience like this, and they got in because they told me, and so they've made terrific gains, because we were covering this when it was around 20-something cents. So it's 2x from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you say. I can only tell you what the charts look like, and I would never say to buy something or not. It's just if the chart looks good, if there's a possible setup, and we said many times that there's possibilities. So, sometimes it works and it's great, and sometimes it doesn't. And so we have to be mindful of those two possible outcomes. And the person who's deciding it is always you, as the person who presses the button on the buy or the sell. So, but yeah, no, this is looking good. So let's hope it continues. Yeah.
Perfect.
So
Before we look at our next one,
yeah.
if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Now, I cover fundamental analysis. It's been fantastic having Paul on here once a week to cover some deep technical analysis so that you can become the most informed audience in crypto, which is really what I'm looking for with this channel, is to have the most informed audience in crypto, which leads to the wealthiest audience in crypto. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the all notifications button. As well as, if you're liking the content, give us a like, and if you hate it, let us know. If it's not at least an 8 out of 10 today, would you give us a dislike or give me a dislike? Ultimately, it's my fault if it's not at least an 8 out of 10. If it is an 8 out of 10, hit the like button. I'd love it. Thanks. All right, so Illuvium. I'm excited to review this one.
Yeah. Now, have I got the right chart?
There will be one with more data on it.
Okay.
It's been around for quite a while, so
I'll go back into CoinGecko. So it's ILV, is it? Oh, there we are.
Go.
Yeah. Right. Yes, there we go. So that's a bit more data. Okay. So this is possibly right. Why did I put candle and then put?
Oh, you went back to the 24-hour. Yep, there you go.
So this is potentially making a top here. So it's going sideways in a big consolidation. Are these prices, is that real? $500? No, that can't be right.
Yeah, no, it's real.
It's real. Wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's great. I've not heard of this. I mean, some of these I haven't heard. You're teaching me about it. It's just fantastic. But I love to see the charts. This was the great run up. So this is a lovely run up. Not only in the amount of price, but in the smoothness of the price. So this is where investors are saying, listen, is this really where it's going to launch up again from, or should we take profit? So I can see a massive amount of indecision here. And for me, there's when the market's doing this, it needs to correct a bit more to shake out the players who've got into it a bit late. So if you've got into it over $500, potentially, that your position's gone nowhere. And when that happens, it's usually time to look for another asset, get out, and then get back in again when it looks a bit more interesting. Now, if it continues, then in this range, so if it's here in another month and it still hasn't gone down, then it kind of reverses again and says, well, this was just a consolidation and now it's time for it to go up. But I would hope that this could move higher from this support. There's very good support around 450. So I'd say 450 is the crossover point. If it closes below that, I think we'll see a bit more of a correction. But, why not? It's had a fantastic run. So a bit of a correction before it then goes back up again wouldn't be the worst thing. I know it's difficult when you're holding a position, but in terms of whether it's going to go to 1,000, well, yeah, I think next year it could. But it's just whether it goes via like a $300 retracement before it does that is what's open to interpretation.
Yeah, my guess is that it will have a big retracement coming up here. Now, long term, this project looks amazing. It's a video game project, and the ILV token, I believe, if I understand it right, is going to function as a DAO token. And as a DAO token, you might even get some profits from the game shared with you. So that token metric has become wildly popular, and there's two big video game projects coming up that are possibly AAA level video games, and that's Star Atlas and Illuvium, and they were all the rage, as you see here, coming into July and August, and they had amazing pumps. But what are parabolic moves always followed by? Pullbacks. And why? It just is what it is. So as they move out of focus and the focus shifts to things outside of the video game crypto space, then what happens? Well, it gets a little bit boring, and then it starts dumping because people just get to ADD, and they move to something else. And so then you see a retracement. And as things are dumping in that retracement, it makes a lot of people who got in late panic sell. So it dumps even further. And then it gets really boring, which is where I then make my entries. Now, I covered this when it was $300. I could have made an entry there. I didn't, because I didn't know how long it would run, even though I'm really interested in this project for the long term. And we had Kieran Warwick, the CEO, on the channel. A fantastic interview. Very, very bright guy. I'm just looking for a really good entry to make here. So if I had made that entry at 300, I would absolutely be pulling out not only my initial but some profits, and then I would just be waiting for it to pull back nicely and be making a new entry.
Excellent. So, Armor. Does this look right to you? Yeah. So
let me pull it up. I know nothing about this project.
Okay, so at the moment, it's if this is the correct coin, which I think it is, this is under pressure. Obviously, you can see that the trend has been down. We had a reversal, really sharp move up here, which should have stuck. It should not have come back below this trigger point of 0.24. Well, basically 0.25. So 0.25 was a technical buy point, and it cross back through it, which you give a little room to, but this has moved too much. So it's now broken below first line of support at 0.19, and then the next line of support where there was a bit more buying right next to it. You can see how we got this reversal here. That's probably doubling up of positions, adding into positions, which has been reversed again, and now this is acting as a barrier, so that maybe those people who bought here saw it go down, thought, okay, if it goes back up, I'm going to bail out. And they have done. It's pushed the price down again. So this is still showing lots of selling signs that I wouldn't be happy with getting bullish on until they can be negated. So they're not currently negated at this stage, which means that there could possibly be a bit more downside to this. Now, where I think the clouds start to clear a bit is if we get back over this 0.15. If that breaks, nice close over, and then a move back up towards this 0.24, then I think we're back in business. But until then, I would just be very careful, because it's still operating from a larger downward trend.
Yeah, so looking up some fundamentals on this in just a few minutes. It's Smart DeFi Asset Coverage, and this is underwritten by Nexus Mutual's blockchain-based insurance alternative. Interesting. So, one of our viewers who suggested this is probably following our principles of buy when it's boring, because this chart is looking very, very boring. My only concern with this chart is that it formed a newer low, which is interesting. This might be the bottom, but we just don't know. I do like that we saw a spike in volume, and we're actually even seeing higher volume than we saw in July happening. So that means there's selling and buying happening. Might be a low. It looks like its market cap has come all the way down to 20,000. Yeah, yep. And we have seen some. So it's very cheap compared to what it was. It's come down 90%. I
mean, just to give a bit of a flavor of how I think of it, and it's interesting to see. There's no right or wrong way. It's like it's your way that you work out, and you got to be comfortable with it. And for me, I like to see both technically and in terms of investment, the market hit a low and then consolidate and then turn up. And I don't mind if I'm not actually buying the low. I think when you have the confidence in the technology behind it and you're seeing cheaper levels, then it's much easier to just buy in, because you understand the fundamentals behind it. But for me, I can't do that. That would be breaking a cardinal rule of technical analysis. So that's why I will always wait for a reversal. Even if the technology is good, I'd like that to be reflected in the price before I like to go in. But that's not necessarily the right way. That's just a way.
Yeah, yeah. My style works over periods of time, but the downside of this is traders often describe it as trying to catch a falling knife, and you'll likely get cut and you'll likely bleed. And so what you evaluate is whether you like the long term on this. Unfortunately, I don't know more about the team than this. I like the narrative that they're in. It's just DeFi has been out of phase since earlier this year, February and March, where the price was really, really high. And so protecting DeFi has also been like out of this cycle as well, and out of sight, out of mind. This comes back into cycle and into the hype cycle. Well, then these things tend to run. So it's starting to get really cheap. It got pretty cheap below 10 cents there. And yeah, I'm going to put this on my list of ones to watch.
There you go.
Sure.
There it goes. It's on the list. So the next one I've got on the list is Orion. I think we did look at this, didn't we? From memory, the chart looks similar to something that we've either looked at this or it looks similar to something we've seen before. And I think we were saying that this is in a range still, and it's still in this range. It actually broke out, started to look bullish here, and it just dropped back into the range again. So we can't say very much about getting bullish until it goes back up again and gets over this 12 level. So, which it could well do. It could well do. This is a very decent low. It's put its peg in the ground right down here at 3.56. It's been moving up nicely. We've had a consolidation, and then it went for another move, and that failed. So a bit of momentum's come off there. Now it's testing this as support. So if that support level breaks, which it's very close to, it's pressing it right now. But to be fair, there is good support there. If it breaks that, then we could see a drop just above 6. But I'd want that to hold. I wouldn't want it to drop below that. So it's basically consolidating here, and it's been in this range, and it's at the bottom of that range. I don't want to see that support level break. If it does, I think it will go down to about 6. But if it can hold it, then I think we'll probably see it go sideways a bit longer before it makes an assault on that 12 again. And that's really where it needs to close over to show us that it's going to get back up to this 28. So we'd have to see what the chart looks like, whether it's got enough momentum if and when it does that to go for this big level, which is really what we want it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And this big wick this retracement back down follows with the market, because it did look like it was ready to blow up there and possibly complete like an inverse head and shoulders.
Yeah.
But it's not ready for that yet. Maybe soon.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was this left shoulder head, right shoulder. And as you see, we talked earlier about the probability. So the probability was you would buy that breakout because it had broken above it. It done everything you'd want it to do for a bullish trigger. And sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it goes up and then it comes straight back down again. So if you're playing off the triggers, then it would be a short entry. So you get in and then you go, okay, that hasn't worked, I'll get out. But if you believe in the technology, then you can sit with it and just say, okay, well, look, I bought here, but long term, I really like it. It really depends on why you bought it in the first place. But on a technical trigger, that's failed to extend, which means that we would short term regroup and then wait again for another buying opportunity, another buy breakout. So
yeah, this one's very interesting. The space that it's in is getting really, really crowded. So I was really big on this early in March and before then, and we were buying it at $3. This was brought to me by one of the viewers then, and so at $3, it's always been a deal. Went all the way up to $30 and then has retraced. My only concern with it now is just how crowded the particular space that it's in is getting. Basically cross-chain compatible dexes and exchanges. So that space is getting crowded. For them, though, they do have, one of the best CMOs in all of crypto, Timothea, I don't remember her last name, but she is constantly putting out news, keeping them in the news cycle, and that goes a long way in crypto. And most projects don't have a CMO like her, and so I expect as the market does better, this one will do better, even though the space is getting crowded. That is my only concern with this, that we didn't have back in February and March that we do now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and this is the main trend line at the moment. And if it does come back to around this 6 level, then there'll be good trend line support there as well. So, but yeah, it looks like you say, it looks like its fate is being set by the broader market, which is in a bit more of a corrective move. Now, have I just doubled that up? I have, haven't I? Okay, right. So the next one is Kyber Network, which I'm thinking we did actually also look at, but I can't remember when it was, whether it was last week or whether it was a few weeks ago.
I don't remember either.
Okay, so I don't know if you have much background on this, but it's basically consolidating. It's coming back in a correction. There's loads of support down here. So where would it be at what? 1.23. So at 1.23, this is where the support line's coming in. It looks like it wants to come in and touch that. Longer term, it has been pretty much you've had some really big swings, as with the broader cryptocurrencies, and it's correcting in quite a volatile way. So, what can we say here? If the technology is good, then you're approaching some really solid support levels that might be a good buying opportunity. But at the moment, it still looks like it's being pressed lower. So I'd be tempted to wait and look for a move back and close over 150 before I would think about sort of getting my feet wet or nibbling into it. But you have these two levels, 1.13 and then 1.08. Near as damn it clear to 1. I mean, there's such a big level here because it goes all the way back here as resistance, support. So there's so much that comes in around this level or these levels that I would hope the market would use that as a bounce point for when the next wave of bullishness comes in. But I'd be really interested to know what the technology is and whether there's a longer term fundamental case for it.
So I've heard of them a lot. I don't really know this project closely, just from their website. It's seamless token swaps anywhere. So it's actually in exactly the same space, or very close to the same space as the one we just covered, Orion protocol, which there's a lot that are rushing for that space, right? Is being able to just trade your tokens as easy and simply as possible across multiple chains, and how to provide liquidity so that that's possible. And so there's a lot of projects that are focusing on trying to provide the solution that will do well there. And there's probably room for 3 or 4 of them to survive. And there's probably at present 40 to 60 main contenders.
Yeah, so it's at some point things get thinned out, but this is holding up. I mean, it's doing well. The overall trend is still up this year, so, and from 2 years, so it's doing okay. It's just that at this point in time, it's under a little bit of pressure. It's being pushed towards support. So Coti. Now, this is interesting. This is a very interesting chart. I don't know. I seem to remember talking about it again, actually. But this has done what the other coin should have done when it took its 12 level out. In other words, this was the consolidation. And then we got this sharp breakout. It doesn't allow it back below the breakout point at 0.46. And then it goes for the high, which it breaks. And now it's pushing again. So this is looking really good. So I would suggest, go for 1. That would be the next target. But that's looking very bullish breakout, even though the broader market is not looking so hot. So that's even stronger. Where I would say I'm protected in support is at this just below 0.5 at 0.47. That was the breakout point. You can see on the chart here, there's the resistance which becomes support, which is the same as here. So it failed to break it here, tried again here, third time's a charm. So it's done it on this third occasion, which is great. So it shouldn't really get back below that. So overall, there must be some great news out there for this to be behaving in this way.
That's exactly what happened. So the Cardano summit was just this last weekend, and I was in the Wyoming, the main part of the summit where Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, was. And yeah, they made a big announcement about a stable coin that they've been working on for a while, DJED, and just how that will integrate into the Cardano ecosystem. And so Coti has taken off. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to the CEO there. He was there, and I saw him for a second, but I was already talking to Sunday Swap's team, and I didn't want to interrupt that conversation to go talk to him, and then I missed him, which is unfortunate. I'll catch him another time. But yeah, great project. I've been a fan of this for a long time. Wow. And still holding some. When this big wave happened, I think I made my purchase in December, and I took a bunch of profits as it did this parabolic move. I still kept 30% of my position, which I still hold, and I'll probably be taking some more profits as it hits close to that $1. Great team. I have nothing but great things to say about this project and the team behind it. Wish I knew them better, but I've been a big fan for a long time.
Will you get the CEO on the show, do you think? Would that be quite an interesting conversation if you didn't get a chance to chat to him? Yeah.
At some point, yes.
Yeah. I know you're busy and the others are busy, but that's really interesting. Really interesting setup there. So yeah, great. Okay, so Luna, is this the correct one? I just want to make sure it is.
I don't think that is.
No.
Luna, no.
Okay,
it'll be Luna Terra.
I see.
Luna, there you see. There you go. Versus the dollar.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, wonder how that happened then. Right. So Luna Terra, which has got some decent data. Here we have again this very similar volatility that tells us that those who've bought down here at the point at the 4 levels are possibly bailing out because the market's breaking a new high and it's swinging all the way back and it's trying to break up again. So this volatility I don't like because it's usually indicative of profit taking and a reversal. So I'm going to say I would be careful because this also might be making a head and shoulders top. So left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Now it's not done it yet, which is in its favor. But if it breaks this line here, then it will complete a top, and I think we'll see a bigger correction. Now, we'll have to keep an eye on this. We'll have to keep an eye, because it could well just hold in and then consolidate and then reverse and go into another bullish phase. So I'm not saying that this is a sell here, because it definitely isn't a sell as yet. It's just exhibiting signs within what could be a reversal pattern. So I think it's just a little bit of cautious approach here in case this becomes a bigger top, and we would know that if it starts to fall towards this support point. So in the same way that I look for the market to base before I expect it to go up, I also look for the market to top before I expect it to go into a broader downward trend. And so even if it comes all the way down to like 26, if it breaks that level, then I'm expecting it to go down a bit further. Only because that would indicate that this is a top. Now that's kind of 2 or 3 chess moves ahead of what the market's actually done. So I'm not saying it's going to do that. I'm just saying that this is looking like a similar reversal type pattern, and it's also exhibiting the sort of volatility that would tell us it's going to turn as well. So if this is good long-term technology, we might get better levels to buy into it. But if you were holding it right at this moment, this isn't enough to actually bail out of it. It's just like it's got to be put on watch. So the way I think of it is, if I was going to go like on a sort of trek for 2 or 3 months, would I be happy to hold it? And the answer would be, I'd be thinking, was that a top? Is it too volatile? I'd be worried about it. Whereas some of the other ones, you'd think, well, they're taking off, so I'd be comfortable with the position. So sometimes your intuitive view is actually your best view. And that's not just me, that's you out there. Use your intuition. What do you really think yourself? And that's how you get good at reading the market for yourself, because there's always a voice in your head that's telling you the right answer, and there's another one that's overriding it and just telling you to do something different. So, listen to that intuition if you can. So for me, I would just be a little bit cautious here, because although it's high and it's holding up well, considering there is that potential topping pattern. But if it at any point starts to make an assault on these highs, go for it. That would suggest that all that's been put to one side and it's off to the races.
Yeah, I had a nice pullback there, but it ran up from $4 all the way to $44, pulled briefly back below 23, and then it hit 44 after being at 23, and what a huge run that was, and then dropped all the way back almost to 23. Now, interestingly enough on this one, some context is Luna is a blockchain, a third-generation blockchain, with very few projects built on it, but the ones that are built on it are amazing. And so it's in an interesting space. So if you have Luna tokens, you can stake them right through Terra Station. And it gives you a return not only in Luna, but when a new project launches on it, they airdrop you tokens. So the staking rewards can be quite significant. They're not huge on your Luna tokens. I don't know what the return is. It might be anywhere between 4 to 7%. But sometimes when you get those airdrops can be really lucrative. Secondarily, if you go to unstake, it takes 21 days to unstake. And during that period, you don't get any rewards. So there's this huge incentive not to unstake. So when things get locked up on Luna, oftentimes they don't easily come off of that. So that's what's creating some holding here that normally we would see a bigger pullback. It seems like somebody's buying those dips up really strongly. And there's some people who bought very cheap and are just flipping this. But as this gets staked, it's very sticky and hard to unstake, because 21 days and you get no rewards during that time. What if a big airdrop happens in that time? And so the incentives just to keep it staked are high. So what I would love to see, I would pray to see, is it comes back to 10 or 12 or $16. I don't think it will. If it does, I will add to my position here. I don't have a huge position in this, but I do have a decent sized position for my portfolio. It's maybe like 0.5% of my portfolio, and I just have it staked in earning some extra Luna tokens. So I have been impressed with the ecosystem. I wasn't too familiar with it prior to about 3 months ago, and so I figured I should get involved in the ecosystem, get to know it a little bit better. Impressed with what I've seen.
Amazing.
And their Terra Station wallet, very good. Allows you to swap right from there, to delegate and stake, get your rewards, see the history. Really well done.
You've sold it to me. That sounds great.
Right?
Brilliant. No, so that's excellent. So yeah, I mean, it just goes to show also that even though the price may be swinging, like you say, you could still be earning a percentage. So that you've got to take that into account. So yeah, fascinating. So I think that's the last one, but that was a great selection of charts. So thank you so much.
There was one that we missed on this, and it's Unvest, UNV. Now, not a lot of history on this.
Yeah, I think that was because there was... Yeah, here we go. I think I had to go to CoinGecko to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is very much in the corrective camp. Let's see if I can get the... Yeah, that's not showing enough signs of life for me at this stage. I think unless the technology is something that you think underpins it, I personally would be saying that this is under too much pressure, and I'd be standing aside and let it get cheaper before jumping in. So yeah, this trend has been pretty much down since the 18th of September, and we need a reversal of that, and we haven't got it as yet. But there's some very good support, very good long-term support. we look at 0.06. So if it gets to 0.06, then that could be a stopping point. It's very big support down there. It didn't just stop there once; it stopped a couple of times. So it's getting close to long-term support. Now, if it breaks that again, I think we'd be asking some questions really about what's going on in the background. But yeah, it looks like it's going to get a bit cheaper before it turns around. But I'd keep it on the watch list to see if there's a sign of a reversal, because it is at these very cheap levels where long-term players, as we mentioned before, might get interested in it. And if they do, then things, it's a great level for it to turn around from, because you're going to make a huge return. But you don't want to be stuck in these low levels as well. So we'd like to see some momentum coming off the low before getting in.
Yeah, some good and bad with it. The market cap is really low at 2.2 million right now. Some things to be aware of: only 2.6% of the supply is in circulation presently. So that's going to be getting added to as some of the pre-sale tokens come in, as well as probably there's some ecosystem tokens that will be unlocked to them that will create some sell pressure. My guess is when the market gets really hot, this one will come sharply into focus, because it looks like they're going to act as a launch pad, as well as they have this unique idea for pre-sale investors to be able to sell off the allocations of their tokens that haven't vested yet, and so that those can be exchanged without hurting directly the price of the token. And so what I've seen so far is that they lock up tokens that are said to be released quarterly, and they'll lock them up as a 3-month vesting and then a 6-month vesting. And then to unvest them when that 3-month period hits, you have to then unlock it through their website. I like this idea very much because almost 40% of my audience is in the US. They're locked out of being able to participate into many of these launch pads. So this is a way that they can pick up some tokens, usually for very cheap. And let me share now that I've kind of seen how this plays out, I have an idea of how this might flow. So say a token launches like Spores, and say they had participated with Unvest, and so that there were some tokens that were still unlocked. And I think Spores has been out close to 3 months. So those are less relevant than say they released every quarter at the 6-month mark. So right about now, you would be able to buy Spores pretty cheap, but probably even cheaper than that per token would be those that vest in 3 months later or even 6 months later. And so though you hadn't been able to participate in the pre-sale, some VCs that are maybe impatient with their funds can dump right into your hands for a very cheap price. And then you just wait that period for them to come out. So they almost act a little bit as options in some senses. So if Spores had participated in that, you'd be able to buy Spores at a discount, but probably these tokens that don't vest for 3 to 6 months would be getting sold much cheaper than that. And I like it because it allows the impatient to sell into the hands of the patient and for you to make even bigger gains.
Amazing. Well, definitely some good levels there. So, but just from my point of view, thanks again for all your comments and all your suggestions. Some really great charts, and we'll keep up to date on what's going on with them over the coming weeks. So great stuff.
Perfect. If you want to suggest something for next week, put it in there. If it's one I haven't covered, could you do us a huge favor and put in there what you like about it? Give us a little bit of fundamental analysis. Probably you're familiar with the token. You know what you like about it. There's no wrong answers there. Tell us that. If you're ready to level up your crypto game and you're here for life-changing money or wife-changing money, or for that matter, a Lamborghini, then strap in because these coming months are going to be very hot. Watch. Now, we are creating the most informed audience in crypto, and we believe that will lead to the wealthiest audience in crypto. If you haven't subscribed, consider it. Thanks so much, and thank you, Paul, and thank you for Definity for loaning you to us. I do have below the link to Definity's Telegram group, so you can join them there. And thank you, Paul, for joining us, and thank Manu for us.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, guys. Great to be here. Take care.
All right.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you bad before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was boring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I'll always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and a feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge to gain show. Sticking at this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. The goal with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.